Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today on Masechtas Sanhedrin Daf Tzadik. We're beginning on the previous Amud on Pei Testament Bays toward the bottom where the words Tanu Rabbanan. Navi Shehidiach Beskilo. When it comes to a Navi who he is trying to get other people to worship idols, so basically what happens, he shows what appears to be his miracles, then he misleads masses of people to be over the Avodah Zarah. So that's a Navi Shediach. So then is he gets skila. However, Rabbi Shimon Omer Bechenek. So it's interesting, by Navi Shediach is a machlokas. Medichi Ernidachas, when it comes to Medichi Ernidachas, in which a person misuses, a leader who misuses power to influence a whole city to worship idols, is Beskila. Shimon Omer Bechenek. So we also find a second machlokas, not just by the Navi Shediach, but also Medicha Ir Nidachas. Navi Shediach, if you have a Navi who was Shediach, is Beskila my Tam Rabbanan. So again, we have these two opinions. Now why, when it comes to Navi Shediach, again, someone who shows what appears to be miracles and misleads the masses, so why do they say that the din is skila? So my Rabbanon. So asid hadach memesis malhon beskil afkan beskil. So we know a mesis here. Only here the Torah says the punishment is skila. You can't argue when it comes to a mesis. A mesis is someone who influences a few people to worship, like for example, his friends, relatives, to worship Avodah Zarah. So when it comes to a mesis, there's no question the punishment is skila. The question is when it comes to Navi Shediach and Medicha Ir Nidachas, is it skila? So he says, yeah, just like the mesis, the din is skila, so to here skila. Shimon misak sibe v'chol miso amar b'Torah stam enu el chenek. Since when it's the Torah, when it is referring to a person who is a Navi Shediach, it does mention that there's Misa, but since it doesn't mention it, we always go after the more Mako, the least, or the most Kal, I should say, of them all, which is Chenek. Fine. Medicha Nidachas Beskil my time, the Rabbanan. So Gemiri, Gamri Hadacha. Oy Memesis, you can either learn from Memesis skill, or Navi Shediach. Since we went out Navi Shediach from the Mesis gets skills, so now we can learn from the Navi Shediach to the Medirch Nidachas. Rabbi Shimon Gamar Hadacha Navi. I went out from the Navi, and the din is Chenek. So Veligmer Mesis. So why does he say get Chenek? Maybe we should learn out from the Mesis. So done in Mesis Rabim and Mesis Rabim makes more sense. I should compare Medirch Nidachas to a Navi Shediach. That which is chenek, as opposed to, so again, done in mesis rabim navi shediach. Leino done in mesis rabim and mesis yochid, because a mesis is the yochid. So you're right. Because even though it's hard to understand why, if you only did it as to individuals, a few people, you're chayav skila, which is the most chomer. But yet, when it comes to these other things, where you're influencing the multitudes, why is it less of a punishment? It's something to contemplate, but certainly he says it makes sense that you shouldn't learn out from Mesis. Okay, fine, the punishment is skila, but Mesis is a yochid, who we want to compare Ram to Ram. When done in Mesis Ram, Mesis yochid. Adarabba, done in Hedit mehedit, then done in Hedim Navi. Why would you learn out from a Navi Shediach? Why don't you learn out from a Mesis who's not a Navi? So we said before, beautiful word, is that, yeah, officially he's a Navi Shediach, but the truth is, if this is who he is, he's no Navi. He's like relinquished his ability to call himself as a Navi. Rav Chisda. So now we're going to see opinions of Rav Chisda and Rav Hamnuna. So Rav Chisda. So Rav Chisda says, as we continue at Sadim and Aleph, Machlokes, says Rashi, the machlokes regarding a Navi Shehediach, whether the punishment is skil or chenek, is only b'oiker haguf diavonis kachavim, in a situation where you completely are oiker with regard to idol worship, or v'kiyim mixas or bittul mixas diavonis kachavim, where you say you can do some and not do some. Says Rashi, in that situation, let's see one more line. Rachman Omer min haderech afil mixas haderech. Even if you tell him a little bit is also is the machlok. It says Rashi Rabbanan Rav Shimon Banavi ba'oiker kol haguf be'avodas chachavim. He completely uproots with idol worship. Yomer nitztavesi baruch hakodesh. I was told by the heavenly spirit, mepi hagvura from Hashem, was navois la'akar kol mitzvahs avodas chachavim. That avodas chachavim has been oiker min atayru, which basically means there is no such thing as an isser avodah zarah anymore. That was the olden days. Now it's totally allowed. Oh, l'kayim mixas umavatal mixas. That you say, well, some avodah zarah is fine, some is not. So that's the reason why it says min haderech afil mixas mashma. So that's what it's referring to. Back in the Gemara, avul oiker haguf the shar mitzvahs divri kol bechenek. If all they do is say, there's no longer a mitzvah of tzitzis. There's no longer a mitzvah of echves, lulav and esrog. So in that situation, the punishment would be chenek. Not everyone would hold that. It would not be skila. The kiyam mixas ubitul mixas the b'shar mitzvahs divrei kol potter. Okay, fine. So that's one opinion. So Masav Rav Hamnuna says, no, it can't be. Because the lechas, when the pasuk says the lechas, zu mitzvahs aseh, ba, zu mitzvahs loisaseh. Now, if it's talking only about avodas chachavim, aseh be'avodas chachavim hech mishkachas la. There's no such thing as an aseh. So therefore, Tigum Rav Chisda says, yeah, it's v'nitzatz them. Their attack is a mitzvah aseh. You're supposed to smash them. You're supposed to break them. That's a mitzvah aseh, to destroy them. Anyway, Rav Hamnuna pointed this out because he's chaylik. He says as follows: Rav Hamnuna omer machlokas ba'oiker aguf. I agree that if he's oiker aguf, there's the machlokas, but it's not just by avodah zarah. Bein be'avodas chachavim, bein b'shar mitzvahs. So even though we said no, the machlokas is not b'shar mitzvahs, in that case everyone will hold chenek. Rav Hamnuna says no, you actually get skila. Bein ba'oiker aguf. Bein b'chavim bein b'shar mitzvahs. The key mitzvahs, the big mitzvahs, the b'chavim. However, when it comes to saying some is okay, whatever, vital worship, to Rachman Oimer min haderech afil mixas haderech. So in that situation, it applies. Avokim mixas ubitul mixas the b'shar mitzvahs divrei kol potter. However, when it comes to saying you can do some of it of another mitzvah, then you're completely potter. Okay. Fine. Let's hold off on that, and let's look at question 13. Navi shehidiach l'akor mitzvah min Torah, to be oiker mitzvah from the Torah be'ezim misa nidain. So we said, according to Rabbi avodas chachavim, Rabban b'skil Rav Shem Bechenek. We said it's a machlokas. B'shar mitzvah satayra. According to Rav Chisda, everyone says it's chenek. Rav Hamnuna, he says that's goof in the machlokas, Rabbanan and Rav Shimon. Okay, it's a hard question to get that right, but that is the question, and that's basically all there is to say. So you got to get it right. It's a really hard question, and they actually did ask this over here, TB 10. So let's take a look at it. Let's see what I wrote. Navi shediach la'aver ba'achlis mi'averos, right? To violate one of the averas. Mohon be'ezim misa nerag. So that's what's the misa if it's shar misais. La'aver ba'achlis mi'averos, which is some of the other averas. So according to Rav Hamnuna, he says the machlokes is bein b'shar mitzvahs. It's even b'shar mitzvahs. However, according to Rav Chisda, he says that kiyam mitzvahs. He says avol oiker guf b'shar mitzvahs divrei kol bechenek. So it's a question: is it a machlokes or maybe it's not a machlokes? What I wrote oiker mixas and then oiker mixas, v'kiyam mixas, oiker guf iser o mixas avodas chachavim oiker guf shar mitzvos. That's really hard. So this is what I wrote, and I have no idea if this is correct. Oiker mixas avodah zarah. So I wrote machlokas im skil o bechenek. So let's see. If you're oiker mixas avodah zarah, so he said over here Oiker gufos chachavim of oiker haguf the sharmit. Let's see, oiker mixas of a zara. Right, oiker, which it's not oiker, it's bittul mixas devos chachavim. So according to one opinion, it's a machlokes, and according to Rav Hamnuna, he says when it comes to kiyum mitzvahs ubitul mixas b'avos chachavim, when it comes to kiyum mixas ubitul mixas of avodas chachavim, afil mixas aderech. Okay, so very shtickle difficult here. Gam yish machlokes ba'oiker gov shar mitzvahs mixas divrei kol chenek of oiker avodah zara skilo chan man diyomer b'mixas avodah zara ein machlokes im chenek o skilo machlokes ba'oiker shar mitzvahs. Okay, this is a question I would have loved to have Dirshu's answers, because that is a lot of stuff that I wrote down. That's a lot to hold cup to remember all these different pieces. Okay, let's keep going. All right, weiter. Taraban. Hamasnavel la'aker davrim in the Torah. Person gives a prophecy, you have to remove a certain mitzvah. So chayiv. So in that situation, that person is chayiv for doing this. L'kayim mixus lavatal mixus. However, if it's to say you can do some of it but not all of it, Rosh Hashanah he says you're potter. But if he says, you know what, today you can do it, but tomorrow you can't do it, everyone holds your chayiv. But again, which misa may be different. Abaya savrlo karev chista matarz karev chista. Rava savrlo karev hamnuna matarz karev hamnuna. Abaya savrlo karev chista matarz karev chista. Hamasnavel akar davim in the Torah, which is the first opinion. A person prophesies to remove of what is la'akar davim in the Torah of other mitzvahs. Divya kol b'chenek. So everyone holds that's what chenek is. That's what it says on the top over here. Oiker haguf v'shar mitzvahs divya kol chenek. L'kai mitzvahs levatel mixus. Now Shimon pointed to adin l'rabanan. Avodas chachavim, when it comes to idol worship, appeal omer hayoyim abdul machar batul chayiv. Market isle, whether it's chenek or skil. Rava savel l'krav hamnuna matarz l'krav hamnuna. Hamas nave, when it prophesies l'akar davim in the Torah to remove a mitzvah, ben b'avos chachavim ben b'shar mitzvahs chayiv. Market isa, whether it's chenek or skila. L'kaim mixes levatel mixes b'shar mitzvahs shimon poiter v'hu adin l'rabanan. Everyone holds your pot there. V'avodas chachavim, afil omer hayoyim abdul machar batul chayiv. Market isla, again, it's a machlokes there. Okay, what I wrote over here. So, okay. All right. Vayt Omer Rav Avoyam Rav Yochanan b'choil im yormocha navi avor al divrei Torah shamulo chutz mi'avos chachavim. If you have someone who's a navi muchsuk, that everyone knows he's a tzaddik and a prophet, you can listen to him to say, even if he's going to tell you akar davim in the Torah, but never when it comes to idol worship. Shefilu maimin l'chachama be'emser rakia al tishmoloi. Even if he's able to somehow change the sun from going in its normal direction, we still don't listen to him. Never. Tanya of Yoseguli Omer Hagia Torah l'sayv daita shalvas chachavim. The Torah went all the way to the correct mindset of the idol worshiper. Lafikach nasna Torah memshalaba. The Torah has dominion over it. Shafil maimed l'chacham emser rakia al tishmolo. So basically, because we understand that someone who's avodas chachavim is going to try to prove every reason in the world that they're correct, that you don't, it's not a problem, you can worship idols, don't listen to them. Doesn't matter what they tell you. Tanya Rabbi Kiva Chaser Shalom Shakadosh Baruch Hu Maimed Chamba L'Over at Sinai. Hashem's not going to actually do that. El Kagain Chananya Ben Azor Shemet Chilaso Navi Emes L'Sayv Navi Shaker. So he used to be able, even though he used to be able to stop the sun, he can't stop the sun now, but since he was able to do it before, people will think, oh, he must be a good guy, but the truth is, he's not. Zaymi Bas Kaim, En Had Miliam Ravacha, When it comes to Edom Zaymin, when the second group says, so the din is that we do to this group of Edom what they wanted to do. Now over here, usually when a man and woman cohabit, the death penalty would be the same. However, there's an exception here. Only the bas kohen would get sreifa, but the man she's boil does not get sreifa. Rather, he gets chenek. So zaymin and yodea, we don't know. Im lo hukshu, im lo hukshu. Do we say that we give him the Edom zaymin the punishment of sreifa because they wanted to give her sreifa, or maybe chenek because they wanted to give that guy chenek? So it's the famous Shirashal, so and that's the reason why we give the Edom Zaymin the punishment of Chenek. Okay, let's look at question TA 9. V'navi hahu asher sivcha Hashem l'leches zu mitzvah saseh. So he said that's mitzvah saseh. Umandim v'nikoy avodah zarah hechem shkachas l'aseh b'avodah zarah. That's nice. That's not such a hard question. So that is actually, well, it could be a hard question because it's only a one-word answer. So Tigam Rabbi Chista v'nitatz them, that you have a chiyuv to smash them. TA 9. Let's see if there's a Rashi over here that maybe makes it a little bit easier to understand what the answer is. Okay, that's the answer. All right. Hadronalach elhin nechnokin. Hanulach elhin nechnokin. Hanulach elhin nechnokin. Now we go into the famous parak of parak Chelek. Koisol yisham chelkom haba. Everyone has a portion of what to come. Shemar b'yamich. In your nation, kum sadikim, you're all righteous. Olim yirshu aretz, they'll inherit the land. Neser mata, their branch of which I planted, Masiyade, the work of my hands, Lispar, which I take pride and glory. So, that is, of course, a famous part of a Mishnah, which we also recited at the beginning of each parak and Pirkei Avos. Now, Chelek is the last parak, but it sounds like it actually starts. It sounds like it starts Chelek Olam Haba. So, what exactly is this whole inyan? We don't want to start the parak in a negative way, even though we're going to end up speaking about Einol Chelek, so therefore we say this. The Medrash Shmuel says that after all of these punishments, we think that we have only din, and then we're not going to have a Chelek and Olam Haba. And that's the idea of what's the purpose of this. It's because we kept hearing you're going to kill for this, kill for that, kill for this, kill for that. The starting point is you start off that you do have a Chelek. The Ben Yoyada says, Avor al Divarai, he's saying the Torah stands, but as a harasha, you don't, not to do a certain mitzvah. That's what we said before. Okay, so there's a lot of marshan here. Chelek means a portion. The question is how much. Ayin the marsha. So as long as you identify yourself as, it says, v'amich, that your nation. So if you're part of Klal Yisrael, then you'll be Yerusha Aretz. Yerusha, since you give a Bechor, even if he doesn't deserve it. But we too really are able to get a Yerusha. So Yerusha is interesting language. It's not something it's not on the Nasina. It's something which you're like born into. So that is how some people explain this. Okay. So but there's some that don't. Someone who's a heretic and says there's no such thing as Chesem Esim. Vein Torah min Shemayim, Torah is not from heaven. Vapikoros. Rabbi Kiva Omer Av HaKairei B'Svarm HaChitzaynim. Someone who also reads these books called the Svarm HaChitzaynim also will not have a Chelek in Olam Haba. If you look at the Rashi of Yeshem Chelek Olam Haba, Mikar Ayri Ba'arba Miso Yisim Afarish V'Ozol V'Hulukulu V'Hadim Afarish Hanid in Lohem Chelek Olam Haba. So it's interesting that really the purpose, we only say Kol Yisrael Yeshem Olam Haba, is because we want to start off on a positive note, as we said. However, the truth is, which really is linked to all the people who do not have a Chelek Olam Haba. Okay. Also, Rabbi Kiva says, Valoichesh al Hamaka, someone who is loichesh al hamake, someone who basically gets healed a wound with certain incantations. He ends up saying like that by saying the statement that whatever happened to the Mitzrayim won't happen to me. We'll understand exactly what's so bad about what he said. Also someone who pronunciates Hashem as Hashem with his letters. There are three kings. Shloishim malachim, who are the kings? Yeravam, who is Yeravam in the Vat, who of course we know is instrumental. There was a whole question: should Yeravam be the next king, or should be Rechavam? And Yeravam, who is not from Malchus Beis David, he ended up causing people to sin. He was Machatias Arabim. He didn't allow people to be Oil Regel. Achav, together with his wife Izevel, pushed the Nevi'ei Habal, people to worship Avodah Zarah, and that's the whole Maisa with Eliyahu Bahar Carmel, even though that was also Harash Shah that he was allowed to do this. Maybe it's connected to what we saw before. Menashe. Okay, Menashe on his own was, on some level, was a great, had great potential, because Menashe was Chizkiyahu's son, and Yeshayahu's daughter, as the Sugin Brachos says that Chizkiah didn't want to have a kid because he saw Baruch HaKodesh, his kid would end up being Mumalu, and maybe he would be punished for that. So he ended up having his son ended up marrying the prophet's daughter, because he said, well, you're saying that my son should get married, so maybe you should marry your daughter. So that was what happened with Menashe. Yeravam, as I said, is the king of the Aseres Shvatim, and he wasn't the Melech of Yehuda, and he forbade, as I said, people to be Olu Regel, and had instead Avodas Kachavim there instead. Achav, as I mentioned again, was the Avodah Zarah of the Baal, and together with Eliyahu Har Carmel. Okay, so those were the kings, if you will. Rabbi Yoitais. So Rabbi Yehuda Omer no Menashe Yeshul Chilkom Haba. Actually, it's a Machlokes Shnemer V'Yispal Olav that he daventim v'yishma tachanato, and he heard his supplications. V'yashivuhu Yerushalayim, and he returned to Yerushalayim l'malchusoi. Armul malchuso heishiv l'olchelom haba heshivu. Yeah, he may have gone back to his malchus, but that doesn't mean he went back to him. He didn't receive olam haba. Arbe had yoitais. Bilam, we know Bilam Harasha was instrumental in the whole rebelling and cursing against the Jewish people. He tried to curse the Jews. But Doyag or Doyag Hadoimi, who was slandered David, and he killed Nov, this Ir HaKohanim. The Achitophel, who deserted David and wanted basically to destroy David. The Gehazi, who was the servant of Elisha. Says the Gemara, B'kol kach lama. So what exactly is all this? So Tana, who kafir b'tchias ha'meisim, if he kol yelo chelchol b'tchias ha'meisim. Makes sense. If you're kafir b'tchias ha'meisim, so you don't believe it's true, then you're not going to get it. Shekoil midas shchodesh baruch hu. Hashem treats measure for measure, so it makes a lot of sense. How do we know Hashem does it this way? Shnemar. The Yermer Elisha said, Shimadavar Hashem, listen to Gomer. Ke'es Machar, around tomorrow, so sell Soilus B'Shekel, a certain amount of flour will be worth a shekel. The Sosaim Sa'ir B'Shekel, and 2 saw bar will be a shekel. The Shar Shaimer at this store, basically, at this market. The Ksiv, V'yan HaShlish, Asher Melech Nishain. So in the third answered, the one in which the king relied on him, Al Yadai, as Isha Elokim, V'yirmehini Hashem Oisa, or Avus Mashamayim, Hashem made these storehouses in the heavens. There was no food. Hayeh Hadavar Hazeh, could it possibly be? V'yirmehini Roa B'Inecha, Hincha Roy B'Inecha, you see in your eyes, Yimishom Lo Yitzaychel, and from you do not eat. Continuing to the next daf, Tzadium and Beis. So somehow we're going to end up learning from here, Mida Keneged Mida. Hopefully we'll figure this out. And it says, V'ksiv v'hi kain, it happened, v'yorimuso some ba'am b'shar v'yomois. And he trampled upon him in the gate, and he died. Okay, so says Rashi, Shebadavar shekafar bo, the thing which he denied, nidoin, he was judged. Shloi oichel misham, they didn't eat from there. V'nirmas baragli haboyim liknois, and there was these people that wanted to make this purchase. Question 14. So elu hadugmois, how do we see this? So one is hakayfer b'tchias. How do we see that if Hashem does meet kanamida? One is, as you said, if you're kayfer b'tchias amesim, you don't get om haba. Or shilishu shel Yeravam melech Yisrael kafir b'nevuas Elisha. So Yeroim was kaifer on the prophecy of Elisha. He says, Ke'es machar, tomorrow so's mishakel, that you'll be able to get a certain amount for the same amount of food. V'ne'enish b'maimer hincha roi beinecha mishum lo'isayich, you won't be able to eat. V'ksiv hilu kain b'nirmas baragli haboyim liknois. So they went to attack. So basically, the idea is that he was claiming that there was going to be issues as far as food, and that's what ended up happening. So enemies fled and left basically all the food, and the people trampled over this non-believer. So he's like, there's not going to be any food, but the enemies left the food, and then he was trampled on. The Dilma Klolos Elisha Garmale, maybe it was the curse of Elisha. The Yammer Yehuda Marab Klolos Chacham Afil Achinami Ba. So Imkain Lichtav Kra V'Yarmi Suhu V'Yamos My Bashar Al Iske Shar, because of what he said of being a non-believer. Hashem l'Aaron akayin v'chi Aaron l'oilim kayin v'loilim nechnas Eretz Yisrael shenasnu l'truma ela mulam shasnu l'chiyos yisol neisin l'truma. So even though the pasuk says we're going to give truma to Aaron, it can only happen when we were in Yerushalayim, when we were in Israel. And Aaron never, like Moshe, never made it to Israel. So it just means that in the future we will. We eventually will be giving food to Aaron and Akayim. Rabbi Shmuel tanu Aaron ki Aaron ma'Aaron chaver avonov chaverim. So maybe it's not actually talking about Tchias Mesim, but it just means, just like Aaron, you have to give it to someone who's like Aaron, who's a Chacham. Because you can't give it to anyone else. You have to give it to a Chacham, not to an Amar. Shenamar, as it says regarding Chizkiyahu, v'yomer la'am, it was said to the nation, L'yosher Yerushalayim, Lo says to give manas, l'kohanim lavim, a certain portion, Yechazu b'tayras Hashem. Kol hamaksik b'Torah Hashem yeshlo manas. Anyone who's maksik in Torah is going to be given a gift of truma. However, she'ena maksik b'Torah Hashem eno manas. However, if this person is not, then we're not going to give him truma. Omer Rav Acha bar Ado Imer Rabbi Huda Kol hanois and truma l'kayin amaretz kilo nois lefnei ari. If you give truma to an amaretz, which you're not supposed to, you might as well just give it to a lion. Ma'ari, Savik Daris Oichel, Savik Daris Oichel, he may pounce on it and eat it, maybe he won't. Av Kainam Art, Savik Oichel, but Tahar, Savik Oichel, Batuma. You don't know what he's going to do. He may end up eating Batahara, he may eating it Batuma. So therefore, that is the problem. Rabbi Yonas and Amr, Av Garim Lomis is going to cause his death. Shemar Mesubo, Kiachaluhu. Said he's going to cause death because he profaned it. The Be'er Belezman Yaakov Tana, Av Masiu Alvain, Ashma. Also, you're carrying the burden of the sin of a guilt offering. Shnemar Hosiyosam Avin Ashma ba'Achlam es Kashehem. Tanya Rav Simoy Omer Manan V'Chisman Atayra. Another proof. Shnemar Begam Hakimoisi es Brisi Itam. I'll give a bris to them. Lo Sislehem es Eretz Kanoan Lochem. Lo Nemar El Lahem, to the Avos themselves. So again, there's numerous proofs. Sadik Gam Geshim Kam Simon Shalu Minim Es Rabbi Gamliel. So they asked Rabbi Gamliel this question. These Sidukim, these people who did not adhere to Torah Shema Peh. Menash Baruch Hu Mechayim Mesim. So straight throughout Tanakh. They didn't accept it. Because first of all, Min HaTorah, they said, Yerma Hashem El Moshe Hinecha Shaychim Yom Masach Vakam. You're going to lie down, but you're going to get up again. Amrulo v'dilma v'kam ha'am hazeh v'zana. Maybe it was actually not that Moshe is going to get, but it was become ha'am. The question is, where do you put the kam or the asnachta? Minadavim dechsiv yichyu meisecha, that those you have died will come back to life. Nivalti yakumoin, the corpses will come back. Hakitzai, they'll wake up. Veranu sheikh the offer, those who are in the dust will sing. So kital oida is telecha, because the dew of light is your dew. The eretz refoim tapil, and the mighty ones will fall. This is Yishmael Boishas. But Dilma Mesim shehichia Yecheskel Yecheskel. Maybe this is Davka talking about this one time. Yecheskel took the atzmois yaveshois, the dry bones, and brought them to life. Miniksuvim dechsev v'chichach kiyayin atayim. Your words are like good wine. Halach l'daidi l'shirayim. You go to my beloved with these sediments. Doivev sifsei yeshenim. The stirring of the lips of those who are sleeping. So which is talking about people who have died, their lips are going to move again. So Vidilma, he says, maybe Rachushi Mirachshan Sivoseha Bialma. Maybe it just means that their lips were just moving. Rav Yochanan, Diami Rav Yochanan, Mishim Rav Shimon Yehusdik, Kol Misha Nemer Halacha B'Shmoi, and who says halacha in his name, Biom Hazes, who are Savasa of David Musmakever, his lips will be moving in the kaver. Shnemer David Sifsi Yeshani, Man Shiyem Lehem Mikrazet. Once he said this pasuk, there was more proof. Asher Nishma Hashem Lavosechem. To them, Mikan Tchesmesim in the Torah. The Yesha Oimrim some say Mina Mikra Hazel Oimr Lehem Yatem Advikam Hashem Alekechem Chaim Kulchem Hayoim. So Pshita Dechayim Kulchem Hayoim Elafil B'Yom Shekol Oilam Kulo Mesim Atem Chaim. So Ma Hayoim Kulchem Kayomin. Just like today, everyone's alive. So Olam Haba Kulchem Kayomin. Okay. Sholo Roimim, the Romans asked us, Rabbi Shubin Chananya, how does he know what will happen? And how do we know Tchias HaMesim? Sarmalahu Tervayum and the Mikrazet. Both of those questions are from the same pasuk. Shnemar, the Yom Hashem El Moshe Hincha Shechem Mosecha, V'kam Ha'amazeh V'zana. So we see again clearly that it was there's Tchias Mason, they're going to get up. V'zana, v'dilma v'kam ha'am hazeh, v'zana. So again, how do you know you're reading it properly? Ramahu nekutu miha palgam b'yadaychu. At least half we do see. Diadua ma she'as that now we at least can figure out he knows what will be in the future. Says the Marsha that there's a 50% chance of v'kam is my way to have proof of Tchias HaMesim. That's the idea. Because when he says v'kam ha'am, it could be this way, it could be that way, so it's at least halfway proof. Itmar nam yom Rav Yochanan Mishim Rav Shimon Yoichai minayin shekadosh baruch hu mechayim mesim v'yodeh ma she'as aliyah shenemar hincha sheichem limosach v'kam v'goymer. Tanya Rabbi Elazar ben Bar Yoisi b'davar zeh ziyafti sifri minim. In this way, it was forged and falsified the Sifrei Minim. in the Torah. Amarti lehem, I said to them, Amarti lehem, we said to them, Ziyavtem teraschem, you're forging the Torah. V'lo halisem biyadchem kolom, you couldn't do anything. V'lo halisem biyadchem kolom, shiatem oimrim in Tchias HaMesim in the Torah. How are you oimer hakaris tikaris hanefashahi avoyna ba? It says the person will get karis. But why does it say it twice? Karis to karis olam haza oinabal le'emos. So when is that? Salav olam haba must be coming to tell us that also it's olam haba. Armali Rav Papa Rabbi v'leimuhu tervayim hikaris to karis. Why don't you learn from the double language of hikaris to karis? Maybe that's talking about olam haba. So inhu havi armul he divitar koshim liyadam. They probably would have said, oh yeah, it's just like how people speak. Kitanoi hikaris to karis. Karis Bom Hazet, Karis Om Haba, Never Rabbi Kiva. Rabbi Shmuel, the like for number, the pasuk also says the Shem Hu Megadif V'Nechorsa. that he was a blasphemer and he should have kares. What do you think there's 3 worlds? He kares the kares. Fine. Bein Rabbi Shmuel, Bein Rabbi Kiva, Oinaba, my Abdile. So what do they do with it? Look at the side. Yachal Pila said Shuva, Tama Oinaba. Lo Marti El Bisman Sha'oinaba. The only time this will happen is only when it's still on you, otherwise not. Shol Cleopatra, the famous Cleopatra Malchasa in Egypt, Esra Meir. I know that people are going to come back to life. Just like the grass will be blossomed. When they get up, will they be clothed or not clothed? Can learn on the kavachamer from wheat. Machita shenikvra ruma, you bury it literally naked with nothing on it. Yatsa bekam levushim. When it sprouts out, there's so many lavushim. It has like leaves and everything covering it. So tzadikim shenikvarim b'lavushehem, a tzaddik who's buried with clothes, alas kama v'kama, that they'll be able to come back tchesemesim with clothes. Okay, we're gonna stop there. We'll just look at some of the things I wrote down over here. There's a lot of Megos Yom. So they asked the kasha, if there's no eating in the world to come, so how is there going to be eating after Tchias HaMesim? So the Rambam says, Tchias HaMesim, they're still eating and drinking. This is not a permanent long life, but eventually the guf and the neshama will separate and go to the Olam HaNeshamos. The Ramban says that regarding Tchias HaMesim, the guf and the neshama stay together forever. So why is there eating? The Aruch LaNer says that there's 2 Tchias HaMesim. First Tchias HaMesim is with the Tzadikim Gemurim, which can be perfect when they're perfect themselves. Then later on, a general Tchias HaMesim eating is the first Tchias HaMesim. So the first eating is by first Tchias HaMesim. The Maharsha says, why is it talking about wine? Because wine usually puts you to sleep. Then wine wakes you up. So here the wine wakes up the Mesim. The Ein Yaakov says, according to the Rambam, there are 3 worlds. Olam Hazet, Olam Haba, and Tchias HaMesim. Ein Sham. Maharsha says that they changed, they took out sources from their Torah, and he hints to Tchias HaMesim. Okay, stalks and husks. So the Ein Yaakov asks, will we be like Adam Harishon, like Noach, Koinem Hachet? So that is his kasha. The Chidah is asked, do we have Bechira? So if Hashem knows the future, it says Hashem knows the future. So Aharon was supposed to get Truma, but he didn't get it. No, this will happen in Tchias HaMesim. So what exactly is the answer? If Hashem knows the future, that's what it says clearly, so then how do we have Bechira? So there's numerous answers. The famous Ragashavar says that we look at past and present and the future, since we have a Zman and space, everything is finite. But in the Shemayim, there's no limit to time and space, since everything's infinite. So infinity means beyond our comprehension of Zman. So therefore, Bechira and Yediyah is not a stira. It's only a stira because you don't understand, because we're limited to time. Okay. Question TA10. Maharayim as far as Shetzahar Shayat Ba'adam Rak Mishas Yitzira. Question TB11. Ma Hateretz L'Stir Subsukum Indian Im Achar Geula Yaka Or Hamoiris Adkan.